Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening. Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about the premiere of WandaVision on Disney Plus? Stick around and find out. Ba-dum, dun dun da da dum, ba-dum, dun dun da da dum, ba-dum, bum bum ba da bum bum. Ba-dum-bum-bow! Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of WandaVision, the premiere anyway, on Disney+. The synopsis on IMDb reads, blends the style of classic sitcoms with the MCU. Really? Blends the styles of classic sitcoms with the MCU? Okay. In which Wanda Maximoff and Vision, two superpowered beings living their ideal suburban lives, begin to suspect that everything is not as it seems. Do they? I don't know. One of them, briefly, very, very briefly, in each of the first two episodes. So what is this thing? It's a 1950s sitcom about a magical wife, Wanda, living with her robot husband, Vision, in a new neighborhood they've just moved to where they're trying to keep their secret. This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Bewitched, or I Dream of Jeannie. It matches the 50s source material with near perfection, deviating only rarely with subtle, slightly modern humor and hints that something else is going on. Most of the story, the vast majority of the story, is entirely in the 50s sitcom context. Each episode has its own 1950s sitcom episode plot and resolution entirely within the context of a 50s sitcom. Only rarely and briefly does it hint at a meta-story about these characters that we know from the Marvel Universe. Just in case, spoiler warning for Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, which you should watch anyway before even trying out this series. It's not going to have any worth to you, I don't think. Well, maybe it would if you... I don't know. But anyway, I might let out some spoilers of stuff from those movies. The jokes in this... I have a cold, dead heart, apparently, when it comes to humor, and so much of the Marvel movies I did not laugh at. I could tell jokes were happening, but I just wasn't finding them funny. I really wonder if many Marvel fans that did laugh at the Marvel movies will finally have the experience I was having with those movies when they watch this show, because the jokes are about as funny as an average 50s sitcom. They only rarely deviate into having subtly modern sensibilities, but the vast majority of all the punchlines, and there are a lot of them, because it's a 50s sitcom, are of that flavor and are likely to be found funny only by people that find that humor funny. The stakes are also as weighty and as big as you would find in a typical episode of a 1950s sitcom. And all the less because we are aware as audience members that something's not right, and all of this is probably not real, because Vision died, as far as we know, in Endgame, or did it happen at the end of Infinity War? I can't remember. Anyway, Vision is dead. And so this could ultimately result in his resurrection. You know, Wanda maybe is going to discover she has powers far greater than what she displayed in the Marvel movies. Marvel Comics fans know that actually Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, as she's known in the comics, I don't know if they ever called her that in the movies, is known to have a much wider variety of powers than we see in the movies, which is the movies, it's largely telekinesis of some kind or another, but she can actually totally change reality in the comic books, from what I understand and what little I've read of her character. So, and it seems like her power set is much more in line with that, what we know of her from the comics, in this 50s sitcom world that she's in. But in any case, we know these characters from the movie, and so we're waiting, at least I'm waiting for Wanda to wake up. I'm waiting to find out, okay, what's really going on? Because I don't really care about this 50s sitcom plot, because I know it's not real. At the very most, it all parallels something that's happening in the real world. Like, that's one thing that I wondered is, are all these characters we're going to discover actual people that she's interacting with in the real world, but she's got, because of some psychosis or something that's been done to her, this aesthetic layer of 50s sitcom painted over everything, but actually she is experiencing parallels or analogs to, in the real world, to what we're seeing her experience in this 50s sitcom reality. That at most is what's going to tie this thing to reality and the stakes of each. But I mean, really, what would the modern equivalent be of a neighborhood talent show that it's really important for Wanda to do well in? I just have no idea. From what I can tell, there is no reason for me to invest in the stakes of this. I would be more invested, honestly, in the stakes of a typical episode of I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched, because at least I would say to myself, okay, for these characters that are in this story, it is real. This is their reality. And so these stakes, as light and fluffy as they are part of their reality. Whereas with Wanda, I'm just like, none of this matters. First, it's weightless to begin with, and second of all, it's not real. So I'm just waiting. I'm waiting and waiting for her to wake up. And in the meantime, I'm sitting through this 1950s sitcom. Now, it's a neat show if you want to watch a 50s sitcom, but the novelty wore off real fast. They mimic 50s sitcoms really impressively. And so in that regard, I tip my hat to them in terms of the shot design, the performance style of the actors. Let's talk about the cast just briefly. We've got Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany both returning as Wanda and Vision, but they're playing entirely different versions of themselves. And yes, it is impressive that they just turn so much as actors. We're seeing, yes, that they are some version of Wanda and Vision, but so radically different as to, again, not really feel the stakes of what they're going through. The other performers, the supporting cast, does a wonderful job of mimicking that 1950s style. It's very, very impressive. But that doesn't make me care about the story. It doesn't make me care to watch more episodes of this. For me, the novelty would last about as long as an SNL sketch. And I'm trying to think, one of the supporting roles, I didn't quite recognize her name, but I think she might have been on SNL before. Anyway, watching this, I'm like, this would be a really cool, like, 5 to 10 minute sketch, 10 minutes at most, on SNL or some other kind of sketch comedy show. But it keeps going on, and after the first episode, we come back, and with very few changes, we are back in this 50s sitcom. Now, it looks like they are going to be moving into color with the third episode, and maybe what we'll see over time, based on clips I've seen promoting the entire series or season as a whole, maybe gradually it'll start getting more and more kind of real, first into color, and then we'll see some more dramatic beats and stuff like that. I don't know. But my gosh, the burn on the meta plot that I actually care about, way too slow for me. Now, as far as relevance, is there anything of moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? I don't think so. It's very subtly critiquing 50s culture, but I don't know if that's really like, is that what we need? Is we need like any kind of critique of 50s culture? I mean, we're so far removed from that. Nobody's particularly wanting to live in a 50s world. I mean, some people are, I'm sure, but that's not really a big thing that I think requires commenting on right now. Maybe they're dealing with themes of keeping up appearances instead of being real with people. But I mean, I think you could pick up on that theme just by watching Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. I suspect those shows, in a very subtle way, during the 1950s and 60s when they aired, were speaking to the whole idea of people trying to keep up appearances, as those characters are trying to hide the fact that I live with a genie, I live with a witch, that kind of thing. So I don't think that even as a 50s sitcom goes, this is really bringing much of anything new thematically. It's such an odd choice, such an odd choice. Again, because it does eventually, in the final moments of episode 2, switch to color. I'm sorry if that comes across as a spoiler. I think there's indications, just apart from any promotional materials outside of these episodes, there's indications here that there's going to be an evolution of the show, that it is going to change over the course of a season, but that pace is moving way too slowly for me, and I think because it leans so heavily into mimicking 50s sitcoms, it's not really doing anything at this point that's going to bring themes to the surface in a really meaningful way, or that's going to be likely to trigger some thought or conversation. That, I think there's a good chance of that changing as this season or series or whatever this is goes on. IMDb describes it as a TV miniseries, so maybe it's a limited series or something. So I don't know if it's just going to be like this set of episodes and then the story's done, or if we're looking at multiple seasons here. I can't remember if they've said anything about that or not. But anyway, I have no idea what your tastes are in TV shows, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Pater. Wow. It's even more perplexing than the teasers for it indicated it would be. Perplexing on a meta level of why in the world are they doing this? It's not that, you like reality bending stuff. You like stories where reality is questioned. You're like, is this real, what I'm experiencing? But they lean so hard into the false reality that you're just going to be so impatient and irritated that you would have to sit through an actual 50s sitcom in order to get to the stuff that's actually relevant to anything you feel or care about regarding these characters and their history in the movies. So wait for Disney Plus to have a huge backlog of things that you want to try out. You did not stick with Mandalorian. That wasn't your show enough to stick with it. But maybe wait till Mandalorian has a second season out, which it does now, but maybe a third season too. Wait till Mandalorian's done. And wait till this show's done. And wait till maybe 3 other shows on Disney Plus are done. And then pay your $7 for 1 month and skim through this, along with the other stuff you skim through in this one in particular, skim through episodes, the first 2, and just watch the last 5 minutes. I mean, there's little hints in the middle of episodes about like, oh, what's going on? Is this reality? And maybe they'll pay off at some point. Maybe they won't. It's not going to be worth it. Just skip those and watch the last 5 to 10 minutes of each episode. And then just keep doing that until it looks like she's starting to finally wake up and you can figure out what's actually going on that's actually advancing the story of Wanda Maximoff. Because these 2 episodes, that's an hour of your time that does not advance her story in any significant way. You're curious about what's going on, but oh my gosh, you are not remotely that curious. Yikes. All right, this one's rated TV PG. Didn't see specifications for why. I would guess mild innuendo. In some of the jokes, they kind of, in very subtle ways, are making jokes that would be it would be too racy for a 50s sitcom, but those are pretty rare instances. Most time it's true blue 50s sitcom, and even in those moments, it's such mild and subtle innuendo that kids in the room, it would just totally go over their heads. All right, those are my thoughts. I would love to get yours in the comments below. Seriously, what do you think of this? I mean, are you blessed with the right kind of funny bone that you're laughing or even chuckling at this? That's awesome if you are. I'm really curious what Marvel movie fans think of this. I think it has potential to go to a really interesting dark place, a dark psychological place. But it's so unusual that that if they're going in that direction, that they would start this way. I'll be fascinated to hear what a variety of different people think about this show. So I'd love to get your thoughts, even more than usual, in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected to this content or introduce someone else to it. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. You can find more info about the benefits of becoming an insider over at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. And then, of course, as always, I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. The Christian Geek Central podcast is the longest-running podcast for Christian geeks with over 600 weekly episodes and counting, featuring audio versions of much of the same content you'll find here, plus exclusive content including weekly news updates from the creators of Christian comics, novels, and video games, debriefing and commentary about what I've been playing, reading, and watching, and my expanded responses to your comments and questions via YouTube, email, or the Christian Geek Central forums. And now, with timestamps, so you can jump straight to the segments you want to hear most. Get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services, and enjoy one more way you can geek out and seek the truth.